Welcome and thank you for joining me today. Let's read together from the Arch Book series, The Little Boat That Almost Sank. Here is a little boat amidst this big storm, this big wave that's coming upon them. And this story is just filled with excitement and adventure. And of course, God's saving power here. So this is taken from Matthew and Mark. Our children's version today is going to be written by Mary Warren, illustrations by Kaveta Arata. Matthew 14:22 to 33 and Mark 6:45 to 51 is where we get this story from. So let's get started here. And so both of these books are from the Gospels. We're going to read a story here about Jesus in particular being here on earth. So, I am tired, said Jesus to his friends one evening, and I will send the crowds away, and then I must go into the hills alone to talk to God. You men row across the lake in your boat, and I will meet you after a while. So here is Jesus expressing himself here. He says, I am tired. And that's how we start this off. Jesus is saying, I'm going to have all of the crowds go away. This is at the time that he has fed thousands and upon thousands. And then he's saying that I'm going to go to a place alone, specifically in a higher elevation here in the hills, and talk to God. Look at the view as I do that, as if I am on top of hill looking down on everything else around me. You men row across the lake in your boat. He gives them orders, and I will meet you after a while. So they understand that, this is a plan. Jesus needs to be alone, and they just have to go ahead of him. So here it is. The sun had set like an enormous red balloon floating down to the edge of the sky. And so Jesus is probably seeing all of this take place as well. And I'm sure he also knows what's to happen in some capacity but that he needs to actually, it is expired. It is time now for him to talk to the Lord, Father. So then he proceeds to do that. And now the birds took their heads under their wings to sleep. Night has fallen, and the flowers folded themselves quietly for the night, and the stars sprinkled their sparkly way into the great black blanket of night. So that transition to nighttime is happening, and everybody is taking their rest and sleeping here. But the Lord continues to pray here, even in his fleshly body. Peter raised his hands in prayer. I will shove the boat off, said James to his friends as they took up the oars. The only sound was the soft sound of wind whooshing the waves and the soft slap of oars dipping in water. So Peter is saying that he is going to push the boat off into the sea here, and he is going to join them shortly. So he's praying, and that is, James is going to push off the boat for his friends and then join them afterwards. So everybody's just having a normal kind of usual outing in the boat out in the sea. The wind is getting worse, said John, as he is also pointing up to the sky and seeing that wind just moving a lot. After they had rowed for a bit, we want to make our boat go one way, but the wind is starting to push it the other way as well, because that's how hard that wind is. Very unexpected, very concerning, and he's pointing that out. He sees that as it unravels here. By then, the sound of the wind had become like the roar of an angry lion. The little waves turned to big waves, and the big waves thumped and bumped and rocked the boat and splashed water into it. As you can see, this big wave, like in the front cover, has now come upon them. Water is splashing. Everybody's wet. It's definitely dark now. But then you see a little bit of light through that thunder and lightning. You see um, the wind so strong, you see things moving around, just being tossed by the wind, and you hear all this loud thunder. So lots of commotion. It's very loud, very scary, and very rocky here. And everyone is so frightened and scared. They really feel like their life is on the line here. And so everyone is panic mode, wondering why this could happen, and everybody here are trying to get to the other side as quickly as they can. They're probably right in the middle of the sea, and they know that Jesus knows that they're out there, and Jesus told them to go out here. But why at this time? Why did Jesus tell us to go in the middle of the storm? Basically, because did he see the sky? Does he pay attention to it? We've all had a long day. We want to make sure that we get home safely and sound. But yet Jesus overlooked this. They're just having so many thoughts, but also trying to hang on to dear life through it all. I'm scared, shouted Andrew, above the noise of the wind and the boom of the waves. I'm a fisherman and have been in rough water many times, but this is terrible. I'm scared. So they know this is definitely beyond the normal sailing, the normal boating here. And everybody is really, really concerned. They feel like they could be just drowning in the water at this point. And he knows this territory out in the waters, specifically this body of water here, because he's a fisherman and he probably went here often, for this is a popular sea. But yet, there they are in this situation at a place that's somewhat familiar, and this has happened. They're crying out possibly to the Lord, or probably haven't even come to that point yet, just panicking. And then again, it says here, Andrew is saying that he's scared, and he is the one who's most familiar with this territory. I am too, shouted Peter. If Jesus were here, I would not feel so scared. I wish he had come with us, called another man, wet and trembling and afraid. Because now they're tired, super tired, just panic mode, cold and wet. And again, just really, really scared. So here they are hanging onto that boat. At least they haven't been tipped over. They're just now thinking about Jesus and crying out to him and seeing that they would find comfort in him. So they know that they can do that, find comfort in him, but possibly also just save them from this whole situation, right? And how they're just hoping and crying out for him. And that should be the case. And they proceed to do that amidst this storm, but they are being held together here by God's hands. When Jesus looked out from the top of the hill, he could see the boat rocking in the moonlight and all of the men pulling hard at the oars. That is a strong wind, he said to himself. It is the middle of the night and they are getting nowhere. That they must be wet and cold and frightened. He sees that as he is in a higher elevation and now looking out to the sea and sees that they are in trouble. And so he's gathering all his thoughts and figuring out what is truly happening, and now goes to attend to them. Down the hill went Jesus, down the hill and over the rocks, down in the dark, until he got to the shore. You'll see him now fast approaching his friends. His friends don't see him do that, but they're just hanging on here. The wind hissed and the waves roared and the boat rocked and the men trembled afraid. Then they saw Jesus walking toward them on the water. They were stiff with fear. A ghost, they screamed. The storm is bad enough.